All right, we are 5-0 in our last 5 board member tier package picks on brockpage.com following Wednesday's sports betting action. We're also 3-0 in our last 3 $1.99 daily best plays on that very same website following Wednesday's sports wagering action as well. And if you want to access today's $1.99 daily best play, it's only going to cost you just $1.99. And the link for both of those packages is in the description section below. Now, the picks that I give out on brockpage.com, they're my personal bets, games that I personally have action on. And with that, let's go ahead and dive into some free content. We're going to start with Colgate taking on Boston University. That's going to be a 2 p.m. Eastern tip-off on Friday, January 28th, 2022. Happy Friday to you. The weekend is finally here. Now, Boston U is -1 with the total at 139.5. Boston failed to cover in 7 out of their last 10 ball games, and they've actually struggled guarding the three-pointer a little bit at home this year. Having said that, though, the Terriers are on a 3-game winning streak, and they're limiting their competition to just 64 points a game. Javonte McCoy's drilling nearly 48% of his three-pointers. He's also scoring 16.5 points a game. Meanwhile, Sukmail Mathon is averaging 15 points a game himself, along with double-digit rebounds. Now, they're taking on a Colgate team who lost 7 of 12 on the road this year, and they covered the point spread in only 33% of those road games. The Raiders have struggled defensively this season, as they're allowing over 75 points a game when they travel. Now, total-wise, oddly enough, Colgate did see their last 4 straight all fall under the posted number. They also went 6-2 to the under in their last 8. Meanwhile, Boston, on the other side of things, they saw unders recently against Loyola, Maryland, Army, and Bucknell. I'm going to lean toward Boston University -1 and the under 139.5. Next contest, it is going to be Penn versus Harvard, 5 o'clock Eastern tip-off. The Harvard Crimson is -2.5 with the total at 144. Now, the Crimson did fail to cover in their last 4 straight, and they've been somewhat loose guarding the 3-ball this year. Having said that, though, Harvard did get the W in 5 out of their last 7 ball games, and they're currently 7-2 straight up at home this year. Noah Kirkwood scoring 17.5 points per contest, along with 5 boards and 3 assists. Meanwhile, Luka Sakota is drilling nearly 43% of his three-pointers. He's also averaging double-digit points a night. Now, the Crimson's done a nice job of scoring points at home this year. They're averaging 77 points a game in front of their home crowd. They're taking on a Penn school who lost 6 out of their last 10 themselves, and they actually do a terrible job on the road. As a matter of fact, the Quakers are just 1-8 straight up as the road team this year. And they're giving up nearly 80 points a game in those road trips. Now, Penn's also allowing their opponents to connect on 48% of their field goals against them when they travel as well. And when it comes to the total in this one, Penn saw overs recently against Dartmouth, Brown, and LaSalle. There were also 60% to the over in their last 10 head-to-head meetings against Harvard. So if you're into historical trends, we've seen a good amount of overs between these two schools here. Now, the Crimson, on the other side of things, they saw overs recently against the likes of Columbia, Brown, and UMass. I'm going to lean toward Harvard -2.5 in the over 144. Next contest, it is going to be Wyoming versus Air Force, 6 o'clock Eastern start time. Wyoming's the 7.5 point favorite with the total at 128. Now, Wyoming got the W in 6 out of their last 7 ball games, and they played some pretty good defense this season. Having said that, though, they did fail to cover in 2 out of their last 3, and they're making just 33% of their three-pointers on the road. Now, they're taking on an Air Force team who covered the number in 12 games already this season, and they also had themselves a winning record at home. We're looking at an Air Force team who's cashed in on a whole bunch of tickets this year. Now, the Falcons are limiting their opponents to just 61 points a game in front of their home fans, and they're also holding their competition to just 28% shooting from three land in that same category. This is a team that plays really, really strong defense. Now, scoring-wise, A.J. Walker, he's draining nearly 41% of his three-pointers. He's also scoring 15 points a night. Meanwhile, Ethan Taylor, he's averaging just about double-digit points a game himself. And when it comes to the number in this one, Air Force saw 8 out of their last 10 ball games fall under the posted number. They're also 72% to the under for the entire season. Meanwhile, Wyoming, they saw unders recently with the likes of Boise State, Nevada, and Utah State. I'm going to lean toward the Air Force Falcons plus 7.5 and the under 128. Next matchup, it is going to be Akron versus Toledo, 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Toledo is -9 with a total at 139.5. Now, the red-hot Toledo Rockets won their last 7 straight, and they covered the number in all 7 of those victories. The Rockets are also undefeated at home this season, and they score 87 points a game there. JT Shoemate is drilling 49% of his three-pointers this season. He's also averaging 15 points a game. Meanwhile, Ryan Rollins is scoring 20 points a game himself, along with 5 boards and 3 assists. Now, the Rockets are making nearly 51% of their field goals at home this year, and they're also in the top 10 in the country in offensive boards. They're taking on an Akron team who failed to cover in 4 out of their last 5 ball games, and those were failures to cover against all of the directional Michigans during that stretch. Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan, and Central Michigan. They failed to cover the number in all of the directional Michigans during that stretch. I don't know. I thought that was kind of funny. But anyway, the Zips have been terrible offensively on the road this year. They're scoring only 60 points a game when traveling, and they're making only 28% of their three-pointers in that very same category. Now, total-wise, the Zips saw 3 out of their last 5 fall under the line. Akron's officially 4-1 to the under in their last 5 road games as well. Meanwhile, Toledo, on the other side of things, they are 13-7 to the under for the entire season themselves. I'm going to lean toward Toledo, -9, and the under 139.5. Next contest, it is going to be Canisius versus Monmouth, 7 o'clock East. Monmouth is -11.5 with the total at 138. Now, the Monmouth Hawks are covering the point spread in over 83% of their ball games for the entire season. They're amongst the best covering teams in all of college basketball. 79 points a game they're averaging on their home court this year as well. George Pappas is scoring over 15.5 points a game, along with 6 rebounds and 3 assists. Meanwhile, Shavar Reynolds is scoring 14 points a game himself, along with 3 boards and a couple assists as well. They're taking on a Canisius squad who's a winless 0-9 in their road games this year, and they're shooting only 36% from the field in those losses. Now, the Golden Griffins are also letting their opponents make 49% of their field goals against them on the road as well. Kind of tough to win road games when your opponents are essentially making 50% of their shots, against you. Now, total-wise, the Griffins saw overs recently against Manhattan and Florida Gulf Coast. They also let Monmouth average 77 points a game in their last 10 head-to-head meetings with them. I'm going to lean toward Monmouth, -11.5, and the over 138. Next ball game, it is going to be Fairfield versus Rhode, 7 o'clock Eastern start time. The Fairfield Stags are -2.5 with the total at 133. Now, the Stags have a winning record on the road this year, and they're limiting their competition to just 28% shooting from 3 land in those road games. Now, offensively, when it comes to the scoring, Jake Wojcik is scoring over 11 points a game. He's also shooting nearly 90% from the stripe. Meanwhile, Taj Benning is averaging 11 points a game himself, along with 4 boards and 2.5 assists. Now, they're taking on a Rhode team who lost 7 out of their last 10 themselves, and they're shooting only 38% from the field on their home court. The Bronx are also one of the worst teams in the country in defensive rebounding as well. When it comes to the scoring in this one, the Riders 4-1 to the under in their last 5 at home, 65% to the under in their last 17 at any location. Meanwhile, Fairfield went 60% to the under in their last 10 outings themselves. I'm going to lean toward Fairfield minus 2.5 in the under 133. Next contest, it is going to be Manhattan versus St. Pete's, 7 p.m. Eastern start time. St. Peter's is minus 7.5 with the total at 134. Now, the Peacocks have gone 7-1 against the spread in their last 8 ball games, and they've beaten the likes of Marist, Niagara, and Canisius during that stretch. Having said that, though, the Peacocks have had some serious problems offensively this year. They're averaging only 66 points a game at home, and they're making only 40% of their field goals in that same category. They're taking on a Manhattan team who averages 74 points a game offensively themselves, and they also do a nice job of grabbing rebounds defensively. I think Manhattan should be able to outscore these guys here today. The Jaspers also covered the point spread in 5 out of their last 7 ball games. Ant Nelson is making nearly 44% of his three-pointers this year. He's also averaging double-digit points a game. Meanwhile, Jose Perez, he's scoring over 17.5 points a game himself, along with 3 boards and 5 assists. Now, total-wise, Manhattan went 80% to the over in their last 10 outings, 5-1 to the over as the official road team. Meanwhile, St. Pete's saw overs recently against Marist and Niagara. I'm going to lean toward Manhattan plus 7.5 and the over 134. Next contest, Niagara versus Siena, 7 p.m. Eastern tip-off. Niagara's -1, totals 125.5. Now, the Purple Eagles of Niagara, they've played some pretty tight defense this season. They're allowing only 66 points a game, and they're limiting their competition to just 30% shooting from beyond the arc on the road. Now, scoring-wise, Marcus Hammond is averaging over 17 points a game, and he's drilling 40% of his three-pointers. Meanwhile, Jordan Cintron is scoring double-digit points a game, along with 5 boards. The Purple Eagles are amongst the better three-point shooting teams in the Metro Conference themselves. They're taking on a Siena team who actually has a losing record at home this year, not playing their best, really just not playing good at home in general. And they're actually scoring just 64 points a game offensively. Now, the Saints are also amongst the worst teams in the entire country in offensive rebounding, really struggling to grab those offensive boards. Now, total-wise, 6 out of these teams' last 10 head-to-head meetings did fall under the posted number. Siena also saw unders recently against the likes of Iona, Marist, and St. Pete's. Meanwhile, Niagara, on the other side, they saw 3 out of their last 5 fall under the line themselves. They also went 6-2 to the under this year as the official road team. I'm going to lean toward Niagara -1 and the under 125.5. Next contest, it is going to be Ohio versus Buffalo, 7 o'clock East. Buffalo's -2.5 with the total at 149. Now, Buffalo failed to cover in 7 out of their last 9 ball games, and they allow 72 points a game at any location. Having said that, though, the Bulls play much better defense on their home court. You thought I was going to fade Buffalo there, but I didn't. I just, did what I just did there. But anyway, got to say it again. The Bulls play much better defense on their home court. They're limiting their competition to just 38% shooting from the field in that category. When it comes to offensive production here, Jonathan Williams is making nearly 43% of his shots from beyond the arc. Now, Williams is also scoring almost 20 points a game, along with 5 boards and a couple assists. Meanwhile, teammate Ronnie Seguin, he's making 40% of his three-pointers himself. He's also scoring 15 points a game. The Bulls score over 86 points a game at home, and they're in the top 15 in the nation in home offensive rebounding. These guys are very good on the offensive end of the court in front of their home crowd. Now, they're taking on an Ohio squad who struggles grabbing defensive boards on the road themselves. The Bobcats also failed to cover in 5 out of their last 8 ball games, and they scored just 63 points a game when they travel. So certainly some areas of concern for Ohio backers. This is a good team. It's a good program, but there are some areas of concern. Now, total-wise, Ohio's 6-1 to the under on the road this year, 60% to the under in their last 10 meetings with the Bulls. Meanwhile, Buffalo saw unders recently with Kent State, Ball State, and Western Michigan. Give me Buffalo -2.5 and the under 149. Next ball game, Purdue-Fort Wayne versus Northern Kentucky, 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Northern Kentucky is -3.5 with the total at 136. And despite winning their last 3 straight, the Norse of Northern Kentucky, they've actually done a pretty bad job of shooting the basketball. They're making just 40% of their field goals this year, and they're averaging only 69 points a game. Now, they failed to cover the point spread recently against the likes of Robert Morris, Green Bay, and Eastern Kentucky. They're taking on a PFW team who won their last 3 straight themselves. And they also covered the point spread in 8 out of their last 9. Now, the Mastodons are scoring 75 points a game this year, and, they don't miss much from the foul line. These guys are actually making 80% of their free throws on the road this year. When it comes to the offense in this one, Jared Godfrey, he's making nearly 40% of his three-pointers, along with 16 points a game. Now, Jalen Pipkins, he's also scoring over 13 points a game himself, along with 3 boards. Now, total-wise, PFW saw 3 out of their last 5 qualifying ball games get over the posted number. Meanwhile, Northern Kentucky saw overs recently with Illinois, Chicago, Wisconsin, Green Bay, and Indiana, the Hoosiers. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Purdue-Fort Wayne +3.5 in the over 136. Next contest, it is going to be Rhode Island versus Dayton, 7 o'clock East. Dayton's -5.5 at home with the total at 123. Now, the Dayton Flyers failed to cover in their last 2 straight, and they're just 5-7 against the spread on their home court this year. Dayton scoring only 68 points a game in front of their home fans. They're taking on a Rhode Island team who won 6 out of their last 9 themselves, and they actually rebound better than most teams in the entire country. As a matter of fact, the Rams are in the top 3 in the nation in defensive rebounding on the road. They're also limiting their competition to just 37% shooting from the field, which is actually in the top 10 in the nation in that particular category as well. Now, scoring-wise, Michael Mitchell's averaging nearly 12 points a game, along with 5 rebounds. Meanwhile, Jeremy Shepard is scoring double-digit points a game himself, along with 3 boards and 3 assists. Now, total-wise, Rhode Island saw their last 3 straight fall under the posted number, 65% to the under for the entire season. Meanwhile, the Dayton Flyers, on the other side of things, they are 9-3 to the under in their last dozen at home. I'm going to lean toward Rhode Island on the road, +5.5, and the under 123. Next ball game, it is going to be Marist versus Quinnipiac, and that's going to be a 7:30 Eastern start time. Marist is -1 with a total at 139.5. But despite being favored in this one, Marist actually lost 4 out of their last 5 ball games, and they're averaging only 69 points per contest. They're taking on a Quinnipiac team who won 7 out of their last 10 themselves, and they also win 70% of their home games. Matt Balink is scoring over 14 points a game along with 4 rebounds. Meanwhile, Big Kevin Marfo is averaging 10.5 rebounds a night himself, along with double-digit points a game. Now, defensively, on the other end of the court here, the Bobcats are limiting their competition to just 39% shooting from the field at home. When it comes to the total in this one, Quinnipiac saw their last 5 straight all fall under the line. They're also 8-1 to the under on their home court. Meanwhile, Marist, on the other side of things, they saw 5 out of their last 8 fall under the posted total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Quinnipiac, +1, and the under 139.5. Next matchup, Cleveland State versus Wright State. And that's going to be a 9 o'clock Eastern tip-off at the Nutter Center. Wright State is -1.5 with the total at 150. Now, the Raiders won 8 out of their last 10 ball games. They do a pretty nice job shooting from the field. Having said that, though, the Raiders have struggled getting offensive boards this year, and they've been terrible shooting from three-land. Wright State is making just 29% of their three-pointers at home this season. Meanwhile, defensively on the other side of the court here, the Raiders are allowing 74 points a game. They're taking on a Cleveland State team who certainly likes to score with the basketball themselves. This could be potentially problematic for Wright State backers here. Now, the Vikings are averaging nearly 80 points a game on the road this season, and they currently find themselves in the top 10 in the nation in road scoring per game. Demoy Hodge, he's averaging over 15.5 points per contest, along with a couple of rebounds. Meanwhile, Torrey Patton's averaging over 13 points a night himself, along with 6 boards and 4 assists. Now, total-wise, Cleveland State went 60% to the over in their last 10 ball games, 3-1 to the over in their last 4 on the road. Meanwhile, Wright State went 60% to the over in their last 10 themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Cleveland State plus 1.5 and the over 150. Next matchup, it is going to be in the Mountain West. I'm talking about San Jose State versus New Mexico, 9 p.m. Eastern start time. The New Mexico Lobos are minus 10 with the total at 151. And although the Lobos are favored by double digits in this ball game here, they've actually played some really bad basketball lately, as they're currently in the middle of a 7-game losing streak. Now the Lobos here, they're amongst the worst rebounding teams in the entire country on the defensive end of the court. They're also giving up over 78 points a game. So we're seeing some significant defensive struggles for this club. Now they're taking on a Spartans team on the other side of things who actually covered the number in 2 out of their last 3 themselves. Now San Jose State, they do a nice job of shooting the 3 ball as a team. Omari Moore, he's drilling nearly 48% of his three-pointers this year. He's also scoring 13 points a game. Meanwhile, Trey Anderson, he's making over 47% of his three-point shots himself, along with double-digit points a game as well. Now, San Jose State covered the point spread recently against the likes of UNLV, Wyoming, and Portland. When it comes to the total in this one, the Spartans are 4-1 to the under in their last 5 outings, 60% to the under in their last 10 meetings with New Mexico. So if you're into historical trends, we've seen ourselves a good amount of unders between these two clubs. Meanwhile, the Lobos on the other side of things, they saw 6 out of their last 10 ball games fall under the posted total themselves. I'm going to lean towards San Jose State plus 10 in the under 151. All right, next contest, we're going to stay in the Mountain West. I'm talking about UNLV versus Colorado State, and that's going to be a 9 o'clock Eastern start time. Colorado State is minus 10.5 with the total at 142. Now, the Rams are on a 5-game winning streak, and they currently have a record of 16-1 straight up for the entire season. Colorado State's amongst the best shooting teams in the nation. They're actually in the top 3 in the entire country in offensive field goal percentage, and they're scoring over 82 points a game at home. David Roddy's making 46% of his shots from downtown this year, 18 points a game for the guard. Meanwhile, John Tanji's making 48% of his three-pointers himself. He's also scoring double-digit points a game as well. Now, the Rams are currently making 52% of their field goals as a team at home. Meanwhile, defensively on the other end of the court, they're actually in the top 30 in the country in defensive boards per game. These guys are very aggressive under the basket. They're taking on a run-and rebel program who lost 4 of 5 on the road this year, and they may have to go to work here tonight without Coleman and Baker. Now, UNLV allows nearly 75 points a game when they travel. We're seeing some struggles here defensively away from their home court. Now, they're also letting their opponents make 49% of their field goals against them away from home as well. When it comes to the total in this one, 4 out of UNLV's last 5 road games got over the line. They're also 60% to the over in their last 10 ball games at any location. I'm going to lean toward Colorado State minus 10.5 and the over 142. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final matchup for the show. It is going to be Boise State versus Fresno State. And that's going to be an 11 o'clock Eastern start time. Fresno State, they are -1 with a total at 115.5. Now, Fresno State failed to cover in their last two straight, and they have had some problems offensively in certain spots this year. Having said that, though, these guys are a perfect 9-0 straight up at home, and they're limiting their competition to just 54 points a game at the Save Mart Center. Matter of fact, Fresno is currently in the top 5 in the entire country in fewest points allowed per contest. Now, scoring-wise, when it comes to offensive production, Anthony Holland, he's making 47% of his three-pointers this year, and he's also averaging just about double-digit points a game. Meanwhile, Orlando Robinson, he's averaging nearly 20 points a game himself, along with 8 boards and a couple assists. Now, they're taking on a Boise State team who failed to cover in 3 out of their last 5 ball games. Those were failures to cover against the likes of Wyoming, Air Force, and New Mexico during that span. Now, the Broncos are also scoring just 64 points a game when they travel, and they're knocking down a pitiful 58% of their free throws on the road. I think me and you could probably shoot 58% from the stripe. I don't know. We could probably come close. But anyway, total-wise, 8 out of Boise's last 10 contests away from their home court fell under the number. Meanwhile, Fresno saw games recently with New Mexico, Utah State, and Utah fall under the line themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Fresno State -1 and the under 115.5. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our quick pick recap. Powered to you by my website at brockpage.com, where we are currently 5-0 in our last 5 board member tier package picks following Wednesday's sports betting action. I like Boston University -1 under 139.5. Harvard -2.5 over 144. Give me Air Force +7.5 under 128. I like Toledo -9 under 139.5. Give me Monmouth.
Answer your question. 139.5 minus 139.5.
Wow, Alexa just came on out of nowhere. Scared the crap out of me.
This might answer your question.
Enough! Alexa, be quiet. All right, Air Force +7.5 under 128. Toledo -9 under 139.5. Monmouth -11.5 over 138. Fairfield -2.5 under 133. Manhattan +7.5 over 134. Niagara -1 under 125.5. Buffalo -2.5 under 149. Purdue Fort Wayne +3.5 over 136. Rhode Island +5.5 under 123. Quinnipiac +1 under 139.5. Cleveland State +1.5 over 150. San Jose State +10 under 151. Colorado State -10.5 over 142. And before I give you my next and final free pick for the video, one final reminder that we are 3-0 in our last 3 $1.99 daily best plays on brockpage.com as well. And if you want to access today's $1.99 daily best play, it's only going to cost you just $1.99. I'm going to lean toward Fresno State -1 in the under 115.5. Hey, Alexa, why did you scare me like that?
Sorry, I'm not sure.
She's not sure. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it. She's literally right behind me. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on brockpage.com. Now, if you guys do end up getting a membership here today on my website, just keep in mind, you're going to get billed the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. So if you guys do end up getting a membership here today on brockpage.com, you're actually going to get access to that content all the way through the end of January. Although I do tell folks in every single video, the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. And guys, if you end up getting the board member tier package, just keep in mind, you're going to get access to every single pick that I give out on that website all the way through the end of January as well. So not only are you going to get access to the board member tier pick itself, you actually get access to every other package, every other membership that I have on that website as well. It's your absolute best package, absolute best value. But anyway, guys, most importantly, I got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, guys, happy Thursday or Friday to you, depending on when you're watching this. Best of luck to you. And I certainly look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at brockpage.com.